Clear to engage. Time on target. 5 mics. Out.
Well, at least this is just free, right? And you're not getting paid for this meeting. So, podcast.
Yeah, that's always.
How's it going? How's the summer, man?
I was gonna say I don't think that makes it better. It just it is what it is. We do it for the people. At least they know we're not bought.
Ain't that the truth? Well, it's good to be home. We were out traveling for a couple weeks too, so it's been quite the busy summer so far.
Yeah, and I decided to do a boys trip with Oliver to San Diego, and then we're going camping to church camp next week. So back off the grid. I mean, I wasn't off the grid before in San Diego, but I wasn't working or doing anything either. So
Let's say San
just having
Diego.
fun.
San Diego isn't off the grid. I was like in Iceland. I was on
No,
the
yeah,
grid.
they don't have internet in Iceland.
They do, but it's a very shaky at best.
Interesting.
And then I didn't want
Plus,
to use my world traveler thing on my phone. So you only really have it when you have internet, right? So you're spending $12 a day per phone for
whoa,
the international connect. So it's $50 a day for me because I pay for everybody's phones. So, I was like, no phones, airplane
no
mode,
phones. And
everybody.
who wants internet when you're on the golf course anyway? That's not the point. And
But
that's
they
what I
do,
saw was just
apparently. Yeah.
picture after picture from the golf course. Even in 4th of July, you guys were in the Midwest playing
Yeah.
golf.
I
That
know.
sounds
Was
like
that
fun.
fun? We caught good weather too, because normally it's like 95% humidity and 95 degrees. So you're just dying as
Sure.
soon as you step outside. But we had like 82, 84-degree days. Still humid. Don't get me wrong. It was humid, but it could have been worse. So
Could have been much worse.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we had a great time in Iowa, man. Talk about just the backbone of the country. That's pretty cool. Pretty
Oliver
cool
and I
place.
got to see the Big Bay Boom from San Diego, which I guess is the largest fireworks on the West Coast, which I didn't know when we were going. I
Oh,
was just like, well, we'll find some fireworks when we're there. So that was really cool.
nice. Yeah,
In
ours is
true
fun.
liberal California fashion, it may be the last year they do actual fireworks. Next year, maybe a drone show or something like that.
Dang. Well, and they don't do it over the ocean because they say it's bad for the fish.
No, it was held up because they were doing testing on the water so that they could get their before and after sample to do their environmental testing. That I was
Wow.
laughing.
So they don't do
Classic.
that for windmills off the coast, but they'll do that for fireworks. I see. Okay. Got it.
We don't want to know if the solar is having any impact on our ag land or on our animals, but
Yeah.
sure, no, you can't. The cows are causing the climate change. That's for sure. Yes, it
Dang.
doesn't make any sense, Brian. It really doesn't.
Yeah, right. Well, hey, we figured we could hop on and catch up real quick. You'll be gone next week. I'll probably try to do a guest host maybe since I'm back and you're out doing your Bible camp stuff. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
find another
I
guest
thought
host.
about it getting a guest host, but then I just didn't, Brian, because I would say that it's because I can't do this without you, but I have before.
Yeah.
So really, it was just I didn't want to try to find a guest during summer
Yeah.
vacations.
It's so easy to not, right? It's just like once both of us are away or you're away and I'm here, it's like, oh well, Reagan's not here. I just won't do anything. So but we'll try to mess around with some stuff next week. I'll try to find somebody. We'll see how lazy I get or not.
There we go.
So I thought what we do. So speaking of center races, all the Graham Plattner stuff that's kind of happening. So I pulled some national stuff I thought would be kind of interesting just to really run through real quick. So the Senate, and then of course talking to some folks, in Iowa and people I've been chatting to across the country. So the Senate races across the country that people are like, I don't know if you call them kind of up in the air, right? So they either lean red or lean blue, but they're not solid red or solid blue. So, and the ones that people care about are Maine, Michigan, Ohio, Alaska, Texas, Iowa, Minnesota, Georgia, New Hampshire, and North Carolina. So that's a lot of Senate races that are happening across the country that people say they're not sure, right? They're either leaning R or they lean blue. Nobody's talking about Oregon, so that's just considered solid blue. And then the state governor races, I thought we'd pull these across the country. And the toss-ups, which they consider to be toss-ups, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan. So, and leans are, which means there's some polling that shows that it's going our way, is Kansas, Ohio, and New Hampshire are all leaning R. And leaning D is New Mexico, Maine, New York is in a lean, not a solid, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and last on the list that had lean D instead of solid D was Oregon.
Was it Oregon, Brian? I wondered.
Yeah. So that really got me thinking, because you were going to talk about getting a statewide poll from the COTEC group. And then, of course, we just saw today polling that Drazen released. So we must be in the time of polling. I'm seeing that on all the Orstar accounts right now.
Yeah, and summer polling is interesting because it really only has one use. It's not a good head-to-head metric. It's really for fundraising. That's all it's for. And I think that's one thing that people need to get narrowed in on. Nobody is paying attention. Summer polling is all fake. It doesn't mean anything. We had poll after poll in 2022 showing Republicans winning, and I mean, we would have dominated the legislature. We might have had super majorities in 2022 if you followed the summer polling, and that stuff just isn't real. And we've learned that a lot of times. You got to learn that the hard way. Unfortunately, you have great summer polling and then the race just totally changes on you. And a lot of times the way it totally changes is it reverts back to historical trends, right? So whatever has happened in that district in the past is what happens again. And I think for Oregon, we're following a similar trend where Drazen in 2022 was able to show that she had a really great shot at winning that first race against COTEC. And then Oregon reverted to what it does, which is the Democrat can win, and the Democrat wins by a small margin, just above 50% or just below 50%. And that's kind of what we have done in the past. Now, I'm not saying she can't win. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's just this historical trend that we're in. Eventually, you break the trend. And the real question is that this cycle or is that a future cycle, right? Well, what's interesting about COTEC's polling, though, and I wanted to read this, because really it was a bunch of demographic info and then just really like a single, and I'm not prepared. I don't have my screenshot up. Here it is. Here's the question I was asked, and I can't guarantee this came from the COTEC campaign. However, it copies all the talking points I'm seeing on our social media. It says, if Christine Drazen becomes governor, she'll do whatever President Trump wants. She refused to stand up to Trump's tariffs and his tariff taxes, his needless war in Iran that are driving up costs of everyday goods families and small businesses rely on, from gas to groceries. But Tina Kotek is standing up to President Trump to defend Oregon values and Oregonians. She successfully blocked his unlawful attempt to deploy the Oregon National Guard into Portland and fought back against his cuts to Oregon's health care and food assistance. Does this statement impact your opinion about the race for governor? Very wordy question, but that's all the talking points she's using on her social media. She resists Trump. She stopped the deployment of the National Guard. And I think if you're going to running on Trump is one thing. If she really hones in on this National Guard thing, I think she's going to start to lose people, because I don't know who still cares about that. I know there was a few liberals important who really did care, but I don't think the rest of voters cared about that. Even Democratic voters in Eugene and these other places. So I think if she gets honed in on that very Portland-centric version of that Trump message, I think it may not be effective as she wants it to be.
Yeah, I think, well, she's trying to find a win. Didn't have a lot of them. I think it's clear that what she should focus on, I think, if I was the COTEC team, is focusing on basically, because this is a referendum on her first 4 years. So she's got to really drill down and figure out what are the things Oregonians care about. Not necessarily, you can do the Trump stuff, and that's clearly where she's going to go with it. But she's got to hone in on the state and try to find the bright spots and the things that, the state has been able to do to accomplish, not just whatever it is against Trump, right? Like, it only works in a Dem primary. It doesn't work.
She's in a trifecta state. She should have accomplishments that she can talk about, but most of the stuff she's going to take credit for, I think, was led by the legislature. A lot of her stuff got watered down or killed. And I think that kind of speaks to the challenge that she had in the first 4 years, was really being the governor. She she struggled in her transition from speaker to governor. Whereas speaker, she muscled through all kinds of accomplishments she could talk about.
Yeah.
And I guess she could still run on some of those probably, but not all of them are good. And not all of them are still relevant either. And so I think that she struggled with that transition from speaker to governor, and that's
Yeah.
showing an impact in her first 4 years of not having a ton to show for it. I mean, the thing she's most well known for is saying we're going to build 30,000 units a year, and we're not closer. We're further from that goal, unfortunately, for Oregonians and home builders and developers alike.
Yeah, well, the one thing that she's been able to do is raise money. So she's raised over 5 million. She's got in the bank. And Drazen's only sitting on like 800K. So in the race for money, that's a struggle. So Drazen then put out some polling today that, shows her up 4 points against Kotek. And I think that's just indicative of, and there's probably, I'm not going to pick apart the poll or whatever. It's fine. There was no crosstab. So we can only report on what we've actually been given. So, a 48, 44 Drazen right now, I just have a hard time believing that there's only 8% undecided voters out there. And these are most likely voters. That was what I heard. So that means that they're decided voters. So who knows what all that means, but hey, it's good for Drazen. It probably, to your point, it probably helps her, scrounge up some dollars. Because she needs up some dollars. So
she needs that. And basically what we know is she needs the way that she competed last time was she needs dollar for dollar to be able to match Kotek, if not outspend her. But I think that's a pretty high bar. I don't think anyone's ever outspent. We've never outspent Democrats before, but if she can at least match dollar for dollar, and that's going to require the RGA to get interested. And so it's all about how much money does RGA have? How do their other races look? If Lombardo puts away Nevada early, I think that really helps Drazen, because then potentially they can talk about moving some dollars over here. Yeah. But even then, I think RGA is going to have a hard time because this race has been fool's gold. And it was fool's gold in 2010. It was fool's gold in 18 with Bueller. It was fool's gold in 2022. And so I don't know if they're going to sign up for it again or not. Yeah. Hopefully they do, because we do need them to, but it's tough.
If I look at it this way, I say if Nevada gets put away, Iowa gets put away, Arizona's still going to stay a toss-up. So I think that Biggs-Hobbs race is going to be a tough one.
I agree.
I think Kansas and Ohio can get put away on the lean R side. I think Vivek can put away Ohio. He should. And then if you get the lean,
I don't think he can, Brian. I think he's kind of a lousy candidate, and I think the Ohio Republicans.
You don't like Vivek. You never liked him.
I do not. He is a used car salesman candidate, and people don't like those guys. They seem sketchy, and he's got lots of big ideas, but no specificity. He was kind of forced into that race after having run for president. He hadn't built up the kind of resume you want from a candidate for governor. He doesn't have the same resume that even Drazen has, right? And I think this is one of the problems that both parties are having now. It's not quite Graham Plattner, but we don't vet these guys. We let them go viral on social media because they sound good, and then it turns out there's nothing there. And this is where the old world, and I consider myself still, even though I would say probably considered younger, although I've been in this arena a long time, I'm still old world politics guy. I'm not that big on social media being an effective way to campaign. Got to have some substance, and the guys without substance start to flame out, and they're more vulnerable to these kinds of attacks. The people who've been around the block, who've had the attacks and fought back and beat them, know what to expect, have shown voters, sort of a sense of like, I'm here to fight and I'm not going away, are the ones that hold on. And I think it's very interesting to see a lot of that stuff. Hopefully Vivek wins, but I think because of the weak candidate that they're running, it's going to cost us money, just like with Paxton in Texas and some of these other places. It just makes it more expensive and harder.
Yeah, that seems to be, well, in the big races, I guess, like these governor, Senate seats, those are, they're basically like mini presidentials, right? So they are big races, and you got to be able, but I do think there's if New York tends to be solid D, Pennsylvania, I don't think we're really viable there. Minnesota, Klobuchar is probably gonna, she's got a lot of respect, to go from the U.S. Senate back to the state house. as governor. Klobuchar is
Mhm.
probably gonna. I think she closes that one up pretty easily.
Yep.
And then you have so then that does open up the door for Drazen to potentially get some money from the RGA. I think there's
She's the
some.
best pickup. I think she's clearly the best pickup.
Yeah.
Besides Arizona. I think, and maybe Kansas is technically blue, but the Democrats term limited. So I would say best or second best pickup opportunity. In Arizona, I mean, it's a more expensive state. It's a bigger state. There's a lot more at play there. Their money isn't going to go as far there. So in a lot of ways, you could argue Oregon's a better pickup opportunity.
Yeah, I think New Mexico's potential too. New Mexico's been sliding a little bit to the right. I think there's a lot of they've been doing a lot of oil and gas drilling in New Mexico, and it's been really fruitful for the people in New Mexico. It's really something that I've been keeping my eye on down there in New Mexico. So I think it's really an idea that they're getting a lot of people in Texas that have moved into Mexico that haven't liked the liberals moving into Dallas and stuff. So it's a little bit of an odd one, but I would look at that one. We'll see how it plays out. But anyways, yeah, there is some opportunity there, but will it get to that 30-40 million mark? Probably, because I heard the Michigan governor's race will be over $100 million is what they're saying. That's their budgets, which is just
crazy.
Insane. Yeah. But like the Michigan, so I was with some friends, and one of the guys that I work with, he works for the Michigan House GOP. The Michigan House GOP for state legislative House seats, Reagan, in Michigan, $40 million budget.
That is frankly awesome for them, but wow, that is so much money.
Isn't that
and what
wild?
Are Democrats going to spend there? Probably more.
Probably more, yeah. We usually get outspent, but Michigan is really like, it's the state to be in because you got congressionals, you got everything, you got Senate race, you got a governor's race, you got House and Senate races. Like it's gonna be it is the state to be working in right now.
That Midwest bias.
Yeah.
And the Midwest is still where it's at in a lot of ways, just because there's so much stuff there.
Well, and then with Trump, I think with Trump winning a lot of the blue wall states, I think that's really kind of changed the dynamic, of where the path is. So
very
trying
true.
to shore those up is important. Hey, speaking of money, real quick. So in Oregon, then going back to money, so $40 million is what we're working on in the Michigan's House rate. I don't even know what the Michigan Senate budget was. One of my buddies is working for the House Republicans in Michigan. So I don't know what the Senate was. I didn't even ask. I should have asked. So he had House R money in Oregon. So from Lucetta Elmer's PAC and Evergreen PAC, she's got $320K, and House D's have 1.3 million. So we have the House D's have 4 times the money in the bank. Senate D's have only about 900K from Jama, Wagner, and leadership, and then Senate R's have 150K.
Unfortunately, looking like we're driving towards a repeat of last cycle's fundraising, which wasn't the best either.
But Bring Balance to Salem, which is Greg Walden's PAC, has 4.5 million.
Jeez. I think the hope is he's going to spend some of that, right? And that's what I'm hoping to see is a pretty good chunk of change go out in a cycle where you have an opportunity that I think will fly under the radar again because it's a midterm. I mean, we've talked about this where it's not supposed to be a good cycle for Republicans, but that doesn't mean we can't create one.
Yeah. Well, and there is probably if you go and look at the people giving the Bring Balance, not just Phil Knight, if you X Phil Knight out of the picture on that and you look at those other donors, to be fair to the Republican leadership, those were traditional leadership Republican dollars that always went there, and now they've just been shifted to Walden's PAC, which I think isn't necessarily, so it's not necessarily fair to say that the House R's and the Senate R's aren't doing their job when all the timber, most of those guys are timber guys, things like that. So you take the top 20, 30 donors of the state, and they're basically giving their money to Greg instead of leadership, which that has its own set of problems of why. But it does make you wonder. So, but either way, assuming that, if Walden spends his money, the the House R's and Senate R's should have enough, but there's a lot to spend your money on. That's still only 10% of the House GOP dollars in Michigan.
It's impressive. I mean, I think, what did we raise in 2022? I say we. I didn't really help with that, but what did Republicans raise in 2022?
16 million.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably, and that's in your best potential year. So that's probably like an all-time number. You probably don't do better than that. But there probably is the opportunity to, hit a 5 to 10 million, right? And what can leadership do? What's the next floor? If you've set the floor at the 2024 cycle, which was not very good, right? Can we build on that and go and start to establish a better baseline? But the problem is leadership has churned quite a bit. And I think that is, it's not ideal, but I think that contributes in a pretty significant way.
It does. And 24 was atrocious in raising money. I mean, that was a huge drop off from 22, which was a big problem. So maybe that's your floor. And we should use that. I think a bottom raise maybe at best 700 grand. And I think Helfrich was somewhere around that on the House side, maybe 800, 900, something like that. So I don't know what Bring Balance ultimately had for 24. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But they were the only ones giving money. So I think that makes that interesting. So could they get more than that? Probably. I mean, if there's some good polling, like you said over the summer, because I saw House R's did polling. I've seen that go through their Starr. So they're clearly out doing polling in their House seats. So we'll see. And then I'm with you though on the summer polling. I think, these guys always want to do benchmarks and stuff like that. And I just don't think summer polling's worth a damn. I think that you have to do it because you want to, but you always get wildly different results come late September than what you did in July. So, it is what it is, but we'll see. The money thing's always interesting to watch and we'll keep our eyes on it. But I do find it interesting that like Fahey and Bowman, though, they always just shove their money into future PAC, and so does Wagner and Jama. Like there's always this shove money into their leadership PACs all the time. So their individual PACs never really have a lot of money, but we don't tend to do that on the Republican side. We tend to, because the leadership fund for the Senate R's only has $6,000 in it.
Well, and that's something that has annoyed Republican leaders throughout is Republican members sit on their money and Democrats give it to win. And that's a clearly different strategy that we use, and one seems to work and one doesn't. So we kind of need to have everybody buy in, right? And that's the idea and I think that's one of the things I've noticed. And we don't all the Republicans don't really get along very well. We don't trust each other very well. And that leads to us hanging separately as opposed to hanging together, Franklin said. So we got to decide at some point when we want to hang together. Once we want to hang together, we'll actually won't hang every time. We'll win some stuff, but we're not going to win if we're going to all be in our separate silos and all say, don't donate to this guy. I'm the only one who can win, and vice versa. I mean, I just think at the end of the day, that's a zero-sum losing strategy when fundraising is about building up everybody. And, you got to get yours, obviously. You got to fundraise your plans and stuff like that. There's no reason to go around hating on any of your other Republicans to do it. Just say, give them 1,000 and give me 2,000, or 200,000. But they're, fundraising, it's not as limited as we think. It's just about convincing the donors that there's the opportunity and the ability to win. You got to talk them into it. It's a bit of a sales pitch. You got to be good at sales. We're real bad at sales, Brian.
Well, and it's, it's pretty early for the summer giving too. And I understand all that. And we had some primaries and stuff like that. So it's a little premature, but I think we'll have a better picture where things look like come near the end of August. I think that'll give us a better, clearer picture of what we're seeing. But
you run out of time faster than you think, and October money isn't worth very much. So, and that's been our problem in the past. So you don't want to let this go and be in this far behind too much longer, I think is your point.
Like when I was in Iowa, Reagan, they had literally every commercial. Vicky and I were watching the morning news one morning, and literally almost every commercial was the governor's race. groups spending against people and groups spending, and then also the two candidates spending for themselves. And it wasn't, the primary's already over. Like
Right.
they
I know that's
rolled
the crazy thing. The primary isn't even happening anymore.
there, but they just roll
So,
right into the general, like they're already spending. So, and
yep.
I just don't see, and I don't know why, just in most other states where they're competitive, they're spending already. So,
Yeah. I still don't know if that money actually does anything, but we don't even have enough to find out. So, that would be nice. Be a nice problem to have.
it sure would be, wouldn't it? Hey, the last thing we wanted to hit on real quick is the Independent Party of Oregon, or otherwise known as the Democratic Party of Oregon, other party. Uh, it put out their nominations, and every single one of their nominations was a Democrat. So
A shocker.
they had a couple independents that are true independents that ran, but none of their cross-party nominations were Republicans, only Democrats. So that is a shocker, but it just goes to show you that it's just the shill of an organization for the Democrat Party.
Well,
and it's just horrible.
I mean, they endorse DSA candidates. I think if you wanted to make the IPO, which is this short for the Independent Party of Oregon, successful, what you would do is, and yes, I'm saying they're not successful. They're not successful in anything. In fact, they had literally one independent senator for a time, and they didn't even support him. In fact, they disavowed him basically, and that was Boquist, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're the independent party, and I'm not saying I would always agree with this, but I'm saying if you want to have an impact on Oregon, what you would do is your goal should be to endorse the most conservative Democrats and the most liberal Republicans. If your idea is that they don't get along, you want to be a moderating force, that would be your job, okay, as I see it. And I think that would, if the independent party just said, we don't have any party platform, we don't have any other goal except for being a moderating force in politics. Because guess what? Your members also don't have a coherent set of values, or independent party isn't a party. It's, I'm not a Democrat or I'm a Republican, not a Republican, right?
Yeah.
So find the most independent-minded candidates. And it's hard to argue Boquist wasn't independent-minded. He helped pass the red flag law as a Republican and got blamed for it by the conservative side of his party. And then he went to be independent, and they're like, no, he's crazy. We don't like him. Well, guess what? Most of these politicians are crazy. So you can't really use that as an excuse anymore anyways. And guess what? Your independent members are going to be a little bit different than the average politician. So they are going to be a little bit more crazy. That's what you're looking for. So you want someone who thinks outside the box. Well, they're going to have some outside the box ideas. So that should be your only goal. And these guys can't get out of their own way. Instead, they're sending out questionnaires. It sounds like they're asking about stuff like, will you participate in walkouts? And do you want to make sure that people can only give $5 an election cycle to make sure we get money out of politics? And just the dumbest stuff imaginable that nobody but their board or whatever cares about, right? And so that makes them ineffective and unimportant because there's like 10 people in the world that care about the things that they have listed on their platform or whatever they call it. And they've totally missed the opportunity that they have to be relevant, to impact Oregon politics. And so they put out a list where they endorse both moderates and democratic socialists, and it's not going to have an impact. That's, at the end of the day, they're just impactless and unimportant. And when they were desperately arguing to the legislature that they should be a major party, well, they're behaving like a minor party. So they're going to continue to be a minor, irrelevant party. That's my take.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, I agree with everything you said, and I just think that they just, the relevance will just keep continuing to die out. And I think people get hoodwinked by being, oh, I'm independent, and that thinking they're middle of the road. I think that's what the connotation of the independent party is you're like center. But that's not what the independent party stands for.
Not their platform. Their platform and their people aren't center.
No, yeah. If you go read everything about them, they're just another Democrat organization. And the fact that they endorse a Leslie Munoz and HD22 was also endorsed by DSA. I don't know how you can say that those two things are you can share those same ideals if you're considered yourself, center minded or even center left minded. You don't agree with the DSA, like you just can't. But that's why you just have to discount it. And there's no statewide governor candidate. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, that they didn't put in a statewide governor candidate because that probably does nothing to hurt, just hurts, Tina at this point.
Right. They
So,
could have gone after Drazen if they wanted to, but it looks like they decided not to, or
yeah,
they could have supported Drazen too. I think that was unlikely based on what they believe and
no,
focus on. But yeah. And again, also choosing to be irrelevant in the governor's race is a fascinating move. Why wouldn't you just say, even if you have all these this weird platform, why wouldn't you just say, look, this candidate doesn't agree with us, but we think that they would bring real change, or we
yeah,
love the governor and we want her to continue doing what she's doing. And they just choose to be irrelevant. They don't even endorse. When the teachers union goes out and said, we're not endorsing for governor, massive headline, IPO, doesn't even matter, doesn't even register.
yeah,
I'm not sure the news has written an article about the Independent Party of Oregon in years. I mean, shoot, it's been a long time since I've seen anything except from their own stinking website.
sure has. Well, the notables, I would say, that are true independents who basically, so there's going to be a third party candidate. The ones that I saw that were notable in that scenario are Senate District 3, which is Southern Oregon, Medford. This guy, Clay Bearnson, is a registered independent. So we're going to get 3 candidates in that race. So that's going to be interesting. On the Senate side, that's the only one. And then in the House, the only one that I saw that was that's going to create a third party is in House District 40. Pat Hubble is a third party candidate. So now you'll have Adam Baker, Pat Hubble, and Michael Sugar in that race. So that was the only one I saw that was a notable third party candidate. And then I did see in House District 29, a guy, Brian Schimmel, who is a registered independent. So that's Susan McLean's district.
Yeah, that one's not winnable.
But we don't have a Republican.
Oh.
No Republican filed in 29. So that really doesn't matter, right? But those are the only ones that were notable. And they gave Javity the independent nominee. So they see, this is what it tells you, is like they made sure that their 3 most vulnerable seats all got cross-party nominations: Emerson Levy, Cyrus Javity, and Leslie Munoz.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody
and
talking there.
I think they understand that generally the third party hurts the Republicans, it seems like, and I'm not sure quite why that is. I don't know if that's true in Senate District 3. It kind of depends on what this guy runs on. If he runs as an environmental lefty, it'll damage the Democrats down there.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
And they do have they've typically been environmentally left in the independent party. So that'll be super interesting to see what they do with that. But I don't love it in the other races.
No, I mean, I think in general, you're probably right. Independent party, third party nominees, usually like Pacific Green is about the Green Party, right? Is about the only one that's really shown that it helps Republicans.
Yeah.
So
working families, I think if they don't cross endorse Democrats, which they almost always do, that also tends to help. But so the only thing I found about this guy is that he ran for Medford mayor at one point. Clay, but he's younger. His website doesn't work for this one, at least. So interesting.
Yeah, right. Interesting stuff. So I don't we'll see how it all plays out. So with that, but that was we won't probably hear from the other minor party candidates or till usually later August is usually when they put theirs out. So and those are usually open for cross-party nominations too. So we'll see how that all plays out. But anyways, there we go. So you go enjoy camp next week. Let's get out of here today. And I'll see if I can find somebody next week.
Yep. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe we've lost all of our listeners. Maybe we start from scratch in the fall. Who knows?
You got to start. Hey, we got to start somewhere. That'd be fine.
We're not dead yet.
Not yet, but we may be. All right, Reagan, get out of here.
All right, see you later, Brian.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.